Hi everyone. This video is going to take a look at the Pentax Spotmatic SP and SP1000. We're going to wrap these both into the same video because, well, they're the same camera. The SP1000, I believe, was a later issue of the SP. I could be wrong on that. Please don't quote me. But functionally, layout-wise, appearance-wise, they're the same. Oh, I know what the difference is. I take that back. The SP1000 is this Honeywell camera, and the SP is the Japanese issue, Asahi Optical Company. That may well be the only difference between the two, whether one was marketed in North America by Honeywell or the rest of the world by Asahi. I'm going to take a moment now. I'm going to set these up, and what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the tops of them, show you that they are in fact exactly the same, and then we're going to go through the SP here and take a look at all the different features and functionality. Alright, and as you can see, we're looking here at the tops of the SP and SP1000, and they have a number of identical features. First off, we've got the film reminder dial, which you can see is the same on each: pan, crow, empty, empty, color, color. And what that does is this is not actually connected to anything. It just reminds you of the type of film, pan crow being panchromatic or black and white, color being color, and you can see that there is a sun over here on this side and a light bulb over here for daylight and tungsten balanced film. And empty, so that you don't, as I have done in the past, shoot an entire roll of film or think you're shooting an entire roll of film when there's nothing in the camera, or worse, open up the camera thinking there's nothing in it and find that, to your dismay, there were 23 photos taken on a roll of film that you'd forgotten about. You can also see there's a slight difference, maybe just due to the age of the cameras here, in the film dial. This has a metal ring. This has a metal ring too. It just looks plasticky, but it's not. They're both metal. Anyway, but they have the same dial, same placement, everything, same cover indicator. So my guess is that these are exactly the same camera, just one marketed in North America, one marketed overseas and in the rest of the world. We're going to take this Pentax SP now, and we're going to go through it. We're going to take a look at all of the different features and functionality. This video is going to focus on the features. Video 2 is going to focus on the functionality. Oops, sorry. Okay, so here we have the Pentax SP. This was one of the original Spotmatics, not this exact one, but I mean this model. There was also the SP 500, which only went up to 500 as its maximum calibrated shutter speed, and then this was followed by the SP2 and SPF, and then the the ES and ES2 later on. This is an interchangeable lens SLR, meaning that it has a front mountable lens that would go right here, and it can be changed. And the Spotmatic is a historically significant camera because it was the first camera that had through-the-lens metering, and that was a major change. Other cameras that this was concurrent with included the Nikon F, which was this camera's main competitor for professional photographers. The main difference being the F was a system camera. This is not. The F had a light meter attachment that went onto it. I believe. I don't think it had a light meter prism, but I could be wrong on that. I don't own an F, and I had a chance to own one, but did not take it, and I kind of regret that. But at any rate, we're talking about the Spotmatic here. The camera's market, these older cameras predate market segmentization in the same way that we know it now, but this was used by everyone from amateurs to professionals. The Spotmatic was the professional photographer's workhorse for many years, and that's a little bit better lighting. That's less harsh. It was the professional photographer's workhorse for years in many professional photography fields. Main competitor again being the Nikon F. It was targeted basically to anyone. If you've seen the ads, and a lot of the old Spotmatic ads can be seen here on YouTube, and they're pretty funny and just very enjoyable to watch. Strongly recommend it. they targeted the average user. So I don't think that Pentax had a super sophisticated marketing strategy for this in the same way that companies have to have a super sophisticated marketing strategy nowadays, but it was usable by an entire range of users from amateur up to professional. It was manufactured by Asahi Optical Company, AOCO, from 1964 to 1971, give or take 1971. I'm not sure if that was the actual end year. That is the year that the Spotmatic SP2 was released. And I believe that it superseded this in every sense, including in terms of it was manufactured and this one was no longer manufactured. Some of these were assembled in Hong Kong, and that might just be, for instance, this one does not say assembled in Hong Kong on the bottom, but if we grab the SP1000, it does say assembled in Hong Kong on the bottom. You can see it right there. And that might just be because the SP1000 was a Honeywell intended for the North American market. I'm not sure, that's just a guess. And an uneducated guess at that, so please don't quote me. This was preceded by the S and H families, the H3, H3V, H1. We've seen the H3V video that I've done, if you might have, maybe you haven't. And then I'll be doing an H3 video at some point in the future. That was concurrent with other Spotmatics, the Spotmatic 500, and superseded by the 2, the 2A, the F, the ES, the ES2, and the F. The Spotmatic series was followed by the Pentax K and M series, and many other Pentax cameras to follow. So let's take a look at the features real quickly. We're going to start at the top, go to the front, same way that we do this. So if you have your instruction manual, grab your instruction manual and follow along. We're going to go in the same order as the instruction manual. If you don't have one, you can find a PDF online fairly easily. It's a fairly common instruction manual. All you have to do is do a Google internet search on Pentax Spotmatic or SP1000 instruction manual. If you really want to get creative, type in file type :PDF, all in one with no spaces, and that'll bring you to where you need to be. If you have an SP1000 instruction manual, it's different than the SP instruction manual, but has the same content. So you can use that one as well. In fact, I'm basing this video off of the SP1000 instruction manual. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is, let's see, I have to go back to my outline here. The camera top, the exposure counter. Over here on this side, right now it's at 0. This is the exposure counter. It tells you how many picture frames you've taken. It's at 0 because I did a couple of exposures before I filmed this video in the dry runs. Yeah, I do dry runs. Anyway, it tells you how many exposures you've taken. When you open the back, it resets it to -2 for when you load the film. We'll take a look at that in the second video. And then it advances to 0 for your first exposure, and then just goes up to 24 or 36 or however many frames you have on your roll of film. This goes up to 36 for counting. If you have, as I've used every now and then, 40 frame rolls, this simply stops counting at 36, I believe. The next one here is the cocked indicator right here. This is a little orange dot next to the shutter release. And the cocked indicator, if it's orange, tells you that if you press the shutter release, you're going to have a picture taken. If it's black, there's not going to be a picture taken. So you can see it's orange right now. Taking a picture, now it's black. And I'm going to use the rapid, there we go. They call it a rapid advance lever because prior to the lever style, you had a knob that was turned to advance the film, and that's not rapid and hurts your fingers after a while. This is very quick. We just call it a film advance lever now. This is the shutter release button, which you just saw me use to trip the shutter. The shutter speed dial goes from bulb, here the B, to 1000. The bulb setting was for back in the day when you would have, like, if you have a dark studio or studio area that you're using, and you just open up the lens and no light comes into the film, you use a flash to take the picture. The light from the flash gives you proper exposure, release the shutter to close it, and then advance onto the next frame. That's what the B in bulb stands for, I think. Then 1/1000th of a second being the fastest time. That's pretty much standard. your X right here, your red X next to the 60th, that red X tells you that your flash sync speed for the X flash is 1/60th of a second. On some of the older Pentaxes, it was between the 60th and the 30th, and that meant that it was about a 45th to a 50th of a second. Typically, they calibrated those out at a 50th of a second, but for this camera, it's 1/60th. Let's see, film speed indicator, film advance lever, just showed you that, went out of order, I apologize, but this is what you use to advance the film. The shutter speed index. Oh yeah, this little triangle here pointing towards 1/500th, that's the shutter speed index, and what that tells you is that when this shutter release gets tripped, the shutter speed will be 1/500th. And as you can see, I'm going to adjust the shutter speed here down to 1/250th, 1/125th, 1/60th. That's how you read the shutter speed index. The film rewind knob, that's this whole contraption over here, the film rewind knob. The film rewind lever, I'm going out of order again, is this thing that pops out here. The film rewind knob is what you would lift up to open the camera back. Okay. Oh yeah, and then the film type reminder dial we talked about earlier in the video, and that's this right here, which tells you whether you have panchromatic, black and white film as we call it nowadays. There used to be a difference in panchromatic films between panchromatic, orthochromatic, and I'm forgetting the third type right now. Panchromatic films have dyes in the emulsion which allow them to see ultraviolet, blue, green, yellow, and red. Ultraviolet light gets stopped by the lens glass, so it doesn't really matter. But it allows you to. But panchromatic black and white films can see all visible spectrum light. Orthochromatic could only see blue and green, and the one that the name I'm blanking on could only see blue and ultraviolet. Color film, obviously, for indoors tungsten balanced film, or outdoors daylight balanced film, and empty. All right, stick around for a bit. We're going to jump next to the front of the camera, and we're going to take a look at all of the different things that are on the front of the camera and what they do. All right, we're back at the front of the camera, and the problem with using the internet to host my outlines is that when my phone screen locks, I have to unlock it again. Okay, so we're back at the instruction manual. This is, if you have the SP1000 in manual, this is page 2. They combine the front and the back of it. The front and the top of the camera in the manual. The first thing we're going to take a look at here are the strap lugs on this side and this side. As you can see, I have little circular split rings in them. This is my preferred method for straps. I have clips on the straps, so I don't have to have a strap on every single camera all the time. This is a pretty good method because it does a lot to prevent brassing. Not enough, but it does a lot. And it looks nifty. You can tell it's a punk camera because it's got earrings. Yeah. Okay, then we got the exposure meter here, right here. The way it works, and we'll take a look at this in the second video, is that when you're ready to meter your exposure, you flip it up, metering, and metering. There we go. Not metering. What happens in there is the switch turns the meter on, and there's a little paddle in here, and that stops the lens down. That shuts the aperture. So if your lens is at f16, when you have the meter off, it would be at your widest aperture, 2, 1.8, 1.4, something like that. Turn on the meter, and that shuts your aperture down to f16 so that the meter can get a reading. The FP flash and terminal and X flash terminals are also on the front. That's X flash right down here, and that's the 1/60th of a second xenon flash, and FP, which is the focal plane, I think, flash. I think that's what it's called. I always forget to look that up again before I record these. And then lastly, and this is not on in the instruction manual at all, is the self timer. And I just like doing that. Exciting, isn't it? Right, so this is the back of the camera, And there's a couple things to notice here. Not very many, as is typical with the backs of these old cameras. We've got the viewfinder eyepiece, the viewfinder accessory groove. You can see there it's got grooves on either side of the eyepiece, making this eyepiece groovy. I hope you saw that coming, I really do, and I hope you didn't expect that I wouldn't do that. Anyway, then we've got the camera back. This is the film door. The accessory groove, I'm going to show you right now one of the things that's used for. See the little grooves? This is a cold shoe, or an accessory shoe as they call it. Cold shoe meaning it does not have an electrical current running to it. It's got these nifty little clips on the side. You can see what they do there. Let me get this in focus. You can see that the clips hold it in place. There we go. You can slide it on. And the accessory clip would hold something like a flash. I can't really think of any other accessories that this would be needed for, honestly, because you don't need a rangefinder, you don't need a light meter, but a flash can be useful on occasion. Anyway, next thing we have is the battery chamber, and this uses the now defunct PX 400 mercury cell batteries. Can't get them anymore, and if you could, they'd be a hazardous material and very difficult to dispose of. My worst fear whenever I buy an old camera like this is that I open it up and find a mercury cell battery, because that's a really serious problem. So thankfully that doesn't happen. We'll go with that. And so you've got the battery chamber here. You can get wine cell batteries for these, which are the correct voltage of 1.35 volts. They don't last very long, but they provide the correct voltage. There's also a way to modify the electrical system to take 1.55 volt batteries without ruining it, but the battery for that's also defunct, so you know, you're kind of limited to the wine cells. And then we've got the tripod bushing right here, standard 3/8, I believe, inch tripod bushing. Maybe it's, anyway, it's a standard tripod bushing size. And then we've got the film rewind button over here. Inside the camera, things get more interesting. And by more interesting, I mean exactly the same as some of the other ones of these we've seen. Let me open up the aperture here a little bit on this lens. There we go, that's good. It's a little bit more light in there. Okay. So the inside of the camera, second, I'm trying to set my outline back up here, has the film chamber over here, and this is where you would set the film cassette to use it. And in the second video, we'll look at how to load film in this. Then you've got the film rewind crank, which is up here. That was in the first, that was in the top. Anyway, that's the film rewind crank again. We've got the film guide rails, which are these two on the outside here. And when the 35mm film goes in, the edges of it rest on the inside edges of these guide rails, and that makes sure that the picture area, which is inside, which is where the shutter curtains are, is lined up correctly on the vertical part of the film. Then we've got the film rails, which are these internal rails, and what they do is they ensure that the film is kept at the proper flange focal distance so that the light coming through the lens is focused properly on the film plane. And that, in conjunction with the film back pressure plate, which we'll see in just a second, ensure that the film is kept flat and smooth. Because if you had film that had ripples in it, then anything that's out of plane would be out of focus. So that's a major problem. That's how they prevent that. That's pretty standard design, the film rails and pressure plate. Here you have the sprocket. The sprocket keeps the film from moving backwards when you don't want it to, and it also keeps proper tension on the film so that it rests flat against the film plane here. Then over here we have the take-up spool, and this is where the film goes as it's used, as you take each exposure until you rewind it and then take it to be developed, or develop it at home. If you've never developed film at home, it's a lot of fun and pretty rewarding. Strongly recommend it. Then the last thing I'm going to show you is the film pressure plate. Now these cameras, the instruction manual shows them having a roller over here, which is another tool to help keep even pressure on the camera or on the film. Mine doesn't. I hope it's not supposed to. It works just fine without it. Anyway, here's the film pressure plate, which I just mentioned, and this helps keep the film flat. And you can see, you can't see, there's too much glare on it. But there you might be able to see that there's some wear marks in the film pressure plate from where many countless rolls of film have traveled over it and slightly dulled the gloss black finish. So that's the hallmark of a well-used and well-loved camera. Now when you take a picture, I'm going to slow this down to a slower shutter speed so you can see it. The shutter curtain's open. Help if I advance the camera, the film. Shutter curtains open and close, even slower. Shutter curtains. That is pretty useless. Let's take this front cover off. That might help. So there you go. You can see the shutter curtains open and close. And what they do is they travel from right to left to take the exposure with a gap between the shutter curtains. And then a curtain opens this way and a curtain closes behind it with a gap between them that exposes the picture, the negative, for the proper amount of time. One thing to bear in mind is that never, 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 never put your finger in the shutter curtains when they're open. Don't do it. Don't touch the shutter curtains. It's a really good way to take a perfectly useful camera and make it a doorstop or paperweight. And the other thing to do is don't ever touch the mirror that's back here, because that's another good way to screw up a perfectly good camera, and that's something you don't want to do. Let's see. So that is we're going to wrap here on the first video. If this video is useful to you, stick around for the second one, and give this one a thumbs up. By the way, that would be great. I appreciate those. Leave me any comments or questions in the comments section. As you'll notice, this is my first video with a red backdrop. I'm trying different colors at the suggestion of a viewer in one of my previous videos, and this does kind of seem to be working. As I was saying before, my camera so rudely interrupted me because I blathered on for too long. So the red backdrop was a viewer suggestion, and as you can see, it does seem to be working pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it. And so anyway, if you have suggestions for the videos or things you would like to see in them, if I have the equipment and technical knowledge on what to do, I'll put the video together for you. I'm more than happy to do that. Also, if you'd like to see more videos, I have about 50 more videos in the works. Click the subscribe button up above, and every time I upload a new video, and I have more types of videos than, hey, take a look at this camera that I just pulled off of my shelf coming. You'll be notified of the new videos.